Good morning, everybody.
Nikki,
Good morning.
Can you need it? Wait.
Morning.
Hold on a second.
Okay, I'll just chill and talk to everybody. How's everybody's morning going? Scott Simpson? Give a round of applause for Scott Simpson. And he is going to give us a master class on bridging the second act. Oh wow, I can't wait for this because I need all the help that I can get. Yes, so welcome Scott Simpson, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. The one thing this works really well, if someone actually is working on a screenplay and having trouble with the second act, then at the end of all this, we can workshop it up here as a group, and you can basically have a good idea of what you want to have accomplished in the second act. So feel free to think about doing something like that. Anyway, so we'll start at the beginning. It's a very good place to start. So in the beginning, people only made what was needed and what they could sell. So go to the next one. An ironwright wrought iron during the war season. He was commissioned to make armor. Next. And went back to pig farming in the off season. Next. Then came the Industrial Revolution. Okay, we can go on. And people started making goods faster than they were needed or could be consumed. Thus began a new era. So that is the art of getting people to buy what they don't want or need. Sometimes newspapers sell themselves. You may recognize the scene from Gone with the Wind. They're all trying to see who was killed, or the casualties from the battle. I guess it's probably Gettysburg, so everyone's just got to have information. So there are times when newspapers can sell themselves just by selling news. Go on. Other times, not so much. Sometimes they need to be special. Okay, let's go on. But all this media is driven by advertising. So what we have here is soap operas. You know why they're called soap operas, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's what they said. Because there was women, housewives in the 30s, 40s, just alone, toiling over the drudgery of housework, and they listened to the radio, and the radio was John, Martha, and they sold Irish Snow. So they sold home cleaning products on the radio to the audience that was listening to their shows. Of course, sex sells. Here they're actually selling Budweiser here, apparently. And then here you have been watching television commercials were the new medium. So we went from radio to magazines to television. Okay, so the next one is advertising sponsors provide content. So the newspaper would pay for a Walter Winchell column. People would buy the newspaper for the gossip column. What are we doing here? These are just all classified ads that are put in that you wanted to get something done. So these supplemented the production and sale, the business of newspapers. Howdy Doody, children's shows, The Shadow, radio shows. All of these people sold advertising to support to fund their shows. The advertising that they provide, the commercials they got, paid their salaries. Okay, let's go on. Remember this, Ralphie Gets Played. And I don't know if y'all remember what was the career? What did Leopold Bloom do? Does anybody remember? He was a canvasser. He actually went to stores and got them to buy advertising that he would then take to the newspapers. He created adverts to sell in newspapers. So even he was like the first ad man in literature, probably. Okay, let's go on. Movies are the outlier. Okay, let's go on. Movies provide a direct moving image that is a visceral process that connects through. People pay for the visceral process of going to movies. This is, and people are willing to pay for this experience. So movies, in other words, don't have advertising. Let's go on. A movie is made, all movies are made on spec in the hope that people will pay to see them. So this, and rather than enjoy sponsored content, it's piped into your home for free. So so let's continue. Competition is ongoing and fierce. First you had talkies, 3D, Technicolor, Panavision. They continue to try to make movies more and more. So let's go on to the next one. Do y'all remember the Tingler? What happened in the Tingler? They had an electric shock fitted to one of the chairs. So you're sitting there watching the thing, and then the tingler happens, and then one person in the audience actually gets tingled and jumps up shocked and scares everybody. And you remember, let's go back. You remember Polyester, Odorama, John Waters. John Waters movie gets Odorama. You sit there and watch it, and then he would smell. Edna Block would smell something, and then he would scratch it to see what she smelled. These are things that didn't really take. Okay, let's go on or not. By the 60s, the Hague Code was lifted, so that they could actually put in more adult content. They weren't limited by the Hays Code as to what they could put on the screen. And so I'm sure you're all familiar with the Hays Code, so we'll go on to the next one. And movies had full freedom of content. This had a lot of violence. This is Hitchcock's first movie with full frontal nudity. This was the first X-rated movie to win Best Picture. Okay, let's go on. Television punched back. And the television was providing, if movies could do it, television could do it as well. So cable television came in and produced content that, again, is on a par with the movies. And again, you were paying a subscription fee for it. You're not paying for advertising. Okay, let's go on. But one thing a movie has to have is, can we guess? A script. Okay, so this is where we got the Titanic and looks like Gone with the Wind. Okay, story, gotta have story. You said content, so you were correct. So it's content. So early on, they took everything that was in public domain. These are all known stories, and they didn't have to pay for the IP, so they got Oliver Twist, Midsummer's Night Dream, Wuthering Heights. Okay, let's go on. And by the 70s, movie production was prohibitive. All the books have been adapted twice over. The studio system had broken down. Most people had color TVs. So some people took up the task of, let's go on.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
So what's a movie next to Wuthering Heights? Wuthering Heights.
Wuthering Heights, yes.
Yeah, what's a movie in the middle?
Midsummer's Night Dream.
Oh.
So what makes a story great? So here's all examples of great stories. Laura, Singing in the Rain, All About Eve, Citizen Kane, Wizard of Oz. Okay, let's go on. One of the first to do this was this book here by Sid Fields called Screenplay. So I'm sure y'all are familiar with this. Let's go on. He came up with this, the Sid Field paradigm. We broke things into 3 acts, and Act 2, the middle act was the middle half of the movie, and it had Act 1, Act 2A, and Act 2B. So this is basically the way his story breaks down. And this is pretty much still survives in this degree to this day. This is pretty much all movies, they try to work with a 3-act screenplay. They try to act with a 3-act structure. Okay, so let's go on.
Scott, Sid Field was the guy who created this.
Yes, this is he was the first one to publish this in his book, Story, I think is what it's called. Okay, let's go on. Which looked a lot like, go back, let's go back to what Aristotle said. Beginning, middle, end, climax, catharsis. So this goes back, at least 3,000 years, and this is very similar to what we're looking at with Sid Fields. Let's go on. In other words, a good movie has 3 acts and runs about as long as you can comfortably sit on the couch. And I think that's the end. Let's see. Okay, so let's go on to bridging the second act.
You got it.
Bridging the second act. Okay, so we'll start. And I'm going to read it out loud just to annoy you. But without a doubt, writing the second act of a screenplay is most difficult. There have been many theories and models on how to conquer Act 2. But until it's a bottle and sold on a shelf, it's a safe assumption that the simple, surefire solution does not yet exist. Let's move on. In fact, it's a joke that we just heard. Never gets tired. I'm having a little trouble with the second act. If there's a problem with the second act, there's a problem with the script. because it's hard. Has a friend ever approached you with an idea of a movie? So it starts off like this, and then this happens, and then a bunch of stuff happens in the middle, and then it ends with this happening. It's a great ending. Let's go on. What happens in the middle? Oh, I don't know. I haven't thought that out. It's just a great idea for a movie. Actually, it's a great idea for a beginning and ending of a movie because virtually anybody can come up with a great idea for a beginning and ending of a movie. The problem is the stuff in the middle because the middle is unknown. So let's go on. So Joseph Campbell, we've all heard of him. This was his start, the hero's journey. And you see it also looks similar to Sid Field's. It starts on Act 1, Act 2, and then Act 3. So, and again, the reason that we know what the beginning and the end are easy because they're known. We know this world that he's leaving us for. We know this world that he returns to. We don't know anything about Act 2. That's where we get lost. Okay, so let's go on. This is the so in this basis, this is the basis for the industry standard of screenwriting from Wizard of Oz to Star Wars. Let's break this journey down into a 3-act structure. Okay. This is Joseph Campbell's 3-act structure. Ordinary World is Act 1. And so what happens is there's a call to adventure. Should I stay? Should I go? Meets with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then they decide to go on the journey. The call to adventure, they leave and they go on the adventure. All this stuff happens in the 2nd act, and then they get the road back home, resurrection, return, things like so. So these are all story elements that you should be familiar with. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Now we can see how the 12-step character arc plays out in real time. The whole point about it's that it's linear. It starts like minute 1 and ends with minute 120. So rather than seeing it as a circular thing, you're seeing it as a linear thing that represents a temporal movement. We can see how the 12-step character arc plays out in real time. Assume this is a 100 to 120 minute movie. 1 minute of time equals 1 page of screenplay. So the first act is going to be 25 to 30 pages. Act 2A is 25 to 30 pages. Act 2B the same, and Act 3 the same. Going back to Campbell's initial circle, all of Act 2 is in the unknown portion of the journey. Anybody can figure out a known beginning and known ending. It is a bunch of stuff that happens in the middle that is terra incognita. This is why the 2nd act is hard to write. And its difficulty isn't because of the character arc, it's because of the story structure. Plan a dynamite story structure for the 2nd act, and it's possible to get it right the first time. You don't have to keep rewriting the 2nd act until it works. Okay, let's go on. So poetics, remember Aristotle's poetics and what makes drama work. Let's go back to it. Basically, it's the beginning, it's a call to adventure, things get the rising tension, the climax, the catharsis, and the end. In the middle, of course, is the 2nd act, which is basically rising action until you get to the climax, and then the resolution is made to go home. Okay, so Sid Field's Paradigm, same thing. Starting to look familiar now. Put them all together, and you get a bridge spanning the 2nd act. This is the method I use to teach students at my screenwriting class in Texas. For first-time screenwriters, it worked to great effect. So let's go on. So simply put, the structure of a 3-act screenplay is best described as a suspension bridge. Act 1 is over land and anchored in what we know. It is the known. It is the ordinary world and the call to adventure. Act 3 is also over land. It is known. It is the return home and anchored into the conclusion. But the purpose of building a bridge in the first place is the middle half, Act 2. It's the part that takes us over the unknown so that we can travel from the beginning of the movie to the end. It's the middle part that literally does all the heavy lifting. Like a suspension bridge, the middle half of the movie is the actual point of its existence. Act 3 is where screenplays go to die for a reason. If the proper structure isn't there from the beginning, all the rewriting in the world isn't going to fix it. If a bridge isn't designed correctly in the beginning, all the retrofitting in the world isn't going to make it as good and safe as it could have been. Where have we seen successful rendering of 3 acts broken down into beginning, action, middle, and return home? Let's look and see. Let's get back to Joseph Campbell, George Lucas, and the original Star Wars trilogy. Star Wars 1, A New Hope. It's in the titles itself. As the beginning, A New Hope. Action, The Empire Strikes Back. This is the action of it. And then the third, The Return Home, it's actually in the titles. It could be more obvious. And of course, if you want to go back, which one's the best one of the three? Okay. It's all about structure. And for the second act to succeed, it has to succeed as a standalone story, stuck in the middle of another movie, like the best part of Star Wars trilogy, Episode 2. The second act isn't just what connects Act 1 to Act 3, like a bridge over troubled water. It's the point of building the damn thing in the first place. So, what is crucial to the structure of Act 2? For this, we need to go to U.S. Film School's mini-movie method popularized by alumnus Chris Soth. The premise is that in early movies, each reel of a film had to be broken down into 15-minute segments for actual technical projection. Each reel of an each reel of an 8-reel movie was consciously designed to be its own mini-movie. Change reels typically want to fade out and fade in when you change to the next reel to the next mini-movie. So let's revisit Joseph Campbell and slice up his chart into 8 pieces. Next. This is reel 1, reel 2, reel 3, reel 4. And so basically you're going to see that in movies typically after 15 minutes there's going to be a fade out because that ends and then it starts with a fade into the next one. And that was just a technical requirement we needed at the time. Okay, so let's go on. So let's break this actually down into linear script structure. We break up the movie into 8 equal units. According to the mini-movie method, a 90 to 120-page screenplay can be divided and managed as 12 to 15-minute page mini-stories as thus. Okay, let's go on. In case anybody feels like saving the cat, let's see what Blake Snyder's beat sheet has to say, but specifically about the middle half that constitutes Act 2. Let's go on. This is the middle half, is Act 2. Mini-movie 3, mini-movie 4, mini-movie 5, mini-movie 6. Correct. So page numbers are based on 110-page script. Okay, very good. The break into 2 at page 25 is the beginning of, it's a clear break into the real story. Very shortly into it, we meet the B story around page 30, and thus begins the fun and games. This is all in the second act. So we're riding the roller coaster, having fun, having a jolly time. The beginning of the second act starts out fun and games. At the midpoint, our hero is faced with a quandary. Does he want to keep doing what he's doing, which has worked so far, or does he need to, which has worked so far, or does he need to do what he needs to do, which is to face his moral flaw or weakness? We all know the answer. He doubles the fuck down. He says, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to change. Okay, let's go on. Bad guys close in. So it works until it doesn't. Going back up that roller coaster is a slog. It drains all of his energy until finally all is lost around page 75. Okay, what the hero has been doing to great effect clearly is no longer working. It's more and more of an uphill battle until, this is all Blake Snyder's Dark Night of the Soul, pages 75, minutes 75 to 85. Fuck my life, what did I have to do to fix this? Well, if you're Dorothy in Wizard of Oz, you had it all along. You just flick your ruby slippers, and if you're Master Luke, you use the Force. This will propel you over the last rise and into Act 3. So let's go on. Note that Act 2 is broken down into 4 sections, 4 mini-movies. Where have we seen this before? Let's see. Next. In the beginning of mini-movie 3, the roller coaster is an infinite free fall of fun and games. Between mini-movies 3 and 4, the roller coaster hits its first pinch point. This is when things start, it's when the line is that does occur. Anyway, it becomes 40. It becomes equal. So at that point, you're now falling halfway and moving this way at the same time. You're at an equilibrium. This is when things start becoming less great and more not great. By the midpoint, the break into Act 2A to 2B, at the very midpoint of the movie, the fun and games have stopped entirely. It's just not fun anymore. Only one thing to do: double the fuck down and make it fun again. So the hero keeps going by sheer will of force. Between mini movie 5 and 6, the roller coaster hits the second pinch point. This is when things start becoming less really not great and more soul-crushing not great. So let's go on. And this is the answer to the structure of the second act. Mini movie 3 breaks into mini movie 4.